Good morning, everyone. So, I've been waiting for this to happen for a very long time. Okay, let me just switch to my data. Clearly, come on. Yes, this is better, I think. Okay, so hi everyone. This is so wonderful to be here. I've been waiting to do this for a very long time, and it's very close to my heart because it's about going zero waste or reducing your waste from home, reducing my waste from home. And composting has really helped me do that. And if we believe it or not, if we are able to manage our waste from home, हम कम से कम 60% waste अपने घर से कम कर सकते हैं. And that's a huge number, right? So a little background. जब हम अपना ओला कचरा या फिर अपना ऑर्गेनिक वेस्ट जो है वो वैसे ही बिना सेग्रीगेट किए अगर कचरे में डाल देते हैं, so what happens is it ends up in the landfills. वो कूड़ेदान में ऐसे ही चला जाता है, and there it mixes with other kinds of materials, with bio waste, with plastics, with all kinds of different stuff. And what happens then is it does not decompose the way it should, but it starts to decompose in a very toxic manner, and it causes something called leachate, which is toxic leachate. And what that happens is that instead of it converting into carbon dioxide and rich content for the soil, it starts to percolate down into the underground, into the soil and the underground water bodies and the surrounding water bodies. And that's why you will see that जहाँ पे भी landfills होते हैं, there are big garbage dump yards. वहाँ के आसपास के इलाके में इतनी बदबू होती है, और साथ में वहाँ के पानी, पीने का पानी जो है वो सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पैक्ट होता है. So just by taking this one little step, छोटा सा कदम हम लोगों की तरफ से, where we're able to manage our own kitchen waste, we definitely should be able to reduce at least 40 to 60% of our waste from home. And that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? I think my garbage is my responsibility, and I should be able to take care of it. So today I thought, jaldi se, this is my little composting setup at home. बहुत ही चालू तरीके का composting setup है. No rocket science, very simple. There are things that I would like to do differently, but also because ये वाला composting setup मैंने lockdown के time पे चालू किया था, so मेरे को जो मिला मैंने उसके साथ बनाया. And घर पे बड़ा सा plastic bucket था, वो यूज़ किया है मैंने. I think this is a 50-liter plastic bucket जो मैं यूज़ कर रही हूँ अभी. और साथ में उसके अलावा कई छोटी छोटी चीज़ें हैं जो जिसकी मुझे ज़रूरत रहती है कंपोस्टिंग के टाइम पे. I'll tell you what those are, so that even you can get started. All right. So, but before that, I wanted to show you जो लॉकडाउन पे कंपोस्टिंग चालू किया था, उसमें से मेरे पास सिर्फ इतना बचा है अभी. So कम से कम ये बकेट जो है इसका आधे से ज़्यादा बकेट कंपोस्ट निकला था सिर्फ लॉकडाउन के कंपोस्टिंग से. So imagine, and all of my plants are really happy because we were able to put all of that back into the plants. They're very happy. Some of them are going back, and some of them are in the other balcony. I'm sitting in my apartment balcony right now, not on the farm. And I promise you to take you to the farm also and show bigger composting there. But today we'll just look at the smaller composting. So anyway, this is the final compost from the earlier waste. This is what I'm left with. So I'm really eager कि ये जल्दी से तैयार हो जाए so that I can feed my plants again. Anyway, so मेरे को एक बड़ा bucket चाहिए. आपके घर में अगर बड़ा नहीं है तो छोटे से भी काम चलेगा. अगर आप experiment करना चाहते हैं तो you can start with a smaller bucket, like a regular cleaning bucket. The best would be if you can get your hands on anything which is earthen pots. वो जो terracotta के जो इतने बड़े-बड़े pots होते हैं. Hi Anna. So that's our Anna guest appearance. Go back now. चलो. आज धूप में बैठना नहीं मिलेगा तुमको यहाँ पे. मैंने लिया हुआ है जगह. Go back. So the best is if you can get terracotta pots, like the big ones, or else earthen pots. अगर कोई कुम्हार है आपके घर के आसपास या कहीं पे आपको मिट्टी के बर्तन या मिट्टी की चीज़ें मिलती हैं तो उनसे आप बड़ा सा एक पॉट ले सकते हैं. That's the best because it's airy, it breathes, earth breathes, right? So anything which is earthen breathes, and it's beautiful for composting setup. So that's one, you need that bucket. The other thing is you need a cap or a lid to put on the bucket or your setup. And this is primarily because flies वगैरह अंदर ना जाए, and it keeps it covered and hygienic. The other is मैं जो है किचन का वेस्ट जो है मैं इनिशियली कभी स्टील के बर्तन में रखती थी, कभी प्लास्टिक में रखती थी, बट द बेस्ट आई फाउंड वाज अगेन छोटी सी ऐसी हांडी जिसके अंदर मैं अपना वेस्ट इकट्ठा करती हूँ पिछले दिन का. सो इसमें कल का वेस्ट है, कल सुबह से शाम तक की किचन का वेस्ट है. सो ये हांडी मेरे को इसलिए पसंद है क्योंकि एक तो काफ़ी सारा पानी होता है हमारे ऑर्गेनिक कंटेंट में, जो किचन में जो वेस्ट निकलता है ना उसमें थोड़ा पानी इकट्ठा हो जाता है. एंड बाय द एंड ऑफ द डे या नेक्स्ट डे जब हम उसको कंपोस्टिंग में डालते हैं तो थोड़ी बदबू आने लगती है उसमें. सो व्हाट आई नोटिस्ड इज ये यूज़ करने से तो वो पानी जो है वो इसमें चला जाता है, it's absorbed in this, and then secondly there's very little smell that comes from when I start saving the kitchen waste. So I prefer using this. You as well. And ये वाला है, ये हमने बिरयानी मंगवाई थी, so बिरयानी इस हांडी में आई थी, so we just saved it and I started using it in the kitchen. You as well can do that. अगर आपके पास ऐसी हांडी readily available नहीं है, आप बाजार से ला सकते हैं, नहीं तो आप स्टील का बर्तन ऐसा और whatever Tupperware कुछ भी यूज कर सकते हैं, it's fine. All right. The other thing is आपको चाहिए रहेगा ऐसा, हम लोग कंपोस्टिंग काफ़ी टाइम से एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं. We've also compost. So composting is essentially your greens and your browns. आपने कई जगह पे पढ़ा होगा, लोगों ने आपको बताया होगा कि जब आप कंपोस्ट करते हैं, जब आप अपना गीला कचरा जो आप यूज़ करते हैं किचन से, उसके साथ आपको सूखा कचरा डालना होता है. सूखा कचरा क्या होता है, वो ब्राउन्स होते हैं. सो एसेंशियली इट्स कार्बन एंड इट्स नाइट्रोजन कंटेंट. सो हम लोगों ने काफ़ी एक्सपेरिमेंट किया लीव्स के साथ, ड्राई लीव्स के साथ और ड्राई फ्लावर्स के साथ. सो वो सब किया, बट द बेस्ट दैट वी फाउंड आउट वाज ये बुरादा, this sawdust from the carpenters. So अगर आपके आसपास फर्नीचर कोई स्टोर है या कोई कारपेंटर है, आप उनके पास जा सकते हैं और एक पूरा गनी बैग भर के आप उनसे sawdust ले आइए, and that's their waste, but their waste becomes your food, right? So that's the whole point about zero waste living and cradle to cradle living, where you're not allowing anything to go to waste. So they'll be very happy to share this with you because it's waste for them and you can use it for your own compost bin. So sawdust, it's my recommendation, but if you want, you can use green leaves, you can dry leaves, you can also use paper, cardboard or paper, but just ensure that there's not too much printing happening on it, because that ink, it's a dye, right? And it's artificial and it's synthetic, so it can go into your compost and you don't want that, obviously. So that. Another is you may want like a khali pot like this. So what happens is कई बार जो है ये फिल हो जाएगा आपको बहुत जल्दी. So like this one कम से कम हमको 1.5 महीना हो गया है अभी मेरे को इसको इस्तेमाल किए हुए, और अभी सिर्फ टी पॉट फुल हुआ है, अभी काफ़ी जगह है इसमें. तो जैसे जैसे कंपोस्ट भरता है वैसे वैसे जब प्रोसेस चालू होता है डिकम्पोजिशन का, वैसे वो नीचे सेटल भी होता है. बट लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स जब गेस्ट्स आ जाते हैं घर में या कुछ ऐसा होता है तो आपका कभी कभी वेस्ट ज़्यादा होता है, एंड स्पेशली अभी विंटर्स में क्योंकि हम लोग ग्रीन लीफी वेजिटेबल्स बहुत खाते हैं, and a lot of us try to get rid of the stems, right? Whether it's coriander, spinach, palak, जो भी है. So उससे जो है, and then the lot of peels from oranges as well, right? So कभी कभी हमारा वेस्ट जो है वो ज़्यादा होता है जिसकी वजह से बाल्टी जो है वो जल्दी फिल हो जाती है. तो उस सिचुएशन में you may want to keep like a separate, it's called a leave-in pot or a resting pot. You can keep it, it can be a wide, ये एक और pot था from a previous plant जो मैंने खाली करके रखा हुआ है, पर आप एक separate या तो बाल्टी ले सकते हैं या फिर एक pot ले सकते हैं, कुछ भी ले सकते हैं. So एक leave-in pot जिसमें अगर आपका compost जो है पूरा भर गया है तो आप उसको निकाल के, उसमें से आधा निकाल के उसको अपने leave-in pot में रख सकते हैं, ताकि the decomposition in the composting can continue in your extra pot, and you can start using the composter again for your fresh kitchen waste. So these are some of the things that you need. Also, now composting at home, The composting is a slow process, like everything in nature, right? Nature takes its own time. You know, कुछ बोते हैं या कुछ उगाते हैं, तो it takes its own time to grow. Decomposition also takes its own time to happen, right? So, लेकिन home composting में we want to accelerate that. हमको चाहिए कि वो जल्दी से थोड़ा जल्दी से compost हो जाए, right? Because we can't have like 5 different buckets sitting in the house, correct? So for that, you need accelerators. There are a lot of accelerators available in the market. You would hear them as EM solution, yeah, mixers, yeah, microbes. They're available in packets as microbes. And you can also use anything which is rich in organic, in microbial activity. So your buttermilk is good. और for that matter your rice starch, जब आप rice को ferment करते हैं, rice water को ferment करते हैं बाद में, so वो वाला starch आप use कर सकते हैं, fermented starch use कर सकते हैं. पर हम लोग क्या घर पे हम लोग क्या करते हैं, हम लोग bioenzymes बनाते हैं आज. So we've been making bioenzymes. एंड व्हाट वी डू इज, रात में सोने से पहले जो हमारा वेस्ट है, जो इस हांडी में कलेक्ट होता है, उसमें हम थोड़ा सा एक जस्ट लाइक हाफ अ कैप फुल हम लोग बायो एंजाइम डाल देते हैं उसमें ऑन टॉप. सो व्हाट हैपेंस, बायो एंजाइम्स आर रिच इन enzyme activity, microbes, right? So, and these are good microbes, and bio enzymes is also made with waste, kitchen waste. So look it up, or else we can do another quick video on how to make bioenzymes at home. There are excellent cleaners. They are just multifaceted. So we use bioenzymes to act as an accelerator. So उसमें रात में हम लोग एक cap full डाल देते हैं. So the enzymatic or the microbial activity has already started in the waste, and then the next morning we take the waste. और वेस्ट को हम ऐसे ही नहीं डालते हैं. रिमेंबर, इट्स अ किचन कॉम्पोस्ट, इट्स अ होम कॉम्पोस्टर, राइट? इट्स नॉट अ इंडस्ट्रियल कॉम्पोस्टर. सो वी वांट टू मेक श्योर दैट इट्स easy for the microbes to work, and it's faster also. So another recommendation is, आप अपना वेस्ट ऐसे ही टॉस करने की जगह उसको अच्छे से काट के डालो, छोटे छोटे चंक से. डोंट पुट लाइक फुल. मैंने कई लोगों को देखा है जो जस्ट टॉस इट. दिस इज समथिंग दैट इवन आई एम गिल्टी ऑफ. Up until certain time, and especially when there are mangoes, the mango seeds, mango khao aur uske वैसे ऐसे ही डाल दो. So what I realized is it takes a very long time to decompose, and you have to really wait. So it's always good. Let's say for instance, this is my last nights I made gobi at home. So Anna, stop itching. Anna खुजली करती रहती है और फिर पूरा टेबल हिला रही है. Stop it, Anna. So anyway, so we made we made cauliflower at home yesterday. और उसमें से ये डंठल जो निकली है, I won't put it just like that. A lot of us may think कि decompose होना ऐसे ही हो जाएगा. But what I'll do is I'll just cut it into smaller, tiny chunks. Okay. See this big chunks, ये big, this big chunks, and that's when I'll toss it into the compost. It's easier for the microbes, and it's also faster. It makes the whole process much faster. And this is true for everything. So from last night, I saved some. I thought I'll pack some, I'll chop some while doing the session, while having this chat with you. So right now I'm just, cutting it nicely in smaller chunks. And that's it. I mean, so, and if you notice here, there is the lid. और हमने क्या किया है, हमने इसके ऊपर एक मल का कपड़ा लिया हुआ है. मल के कपड़े को ऊपर में ऐसे बांध के रखा है, जिससे क्या होता है, फ्लाइज जो है वो कम हो जाती है. एंड प्लस इट्स नाइस एरिएशन फॉर द बकेट ऑल्सो. So when we talk about composting, there are different ways of composting, right? So you must have heard there is aerobic and anaerobic composting, and there's vermiculture. So this is aerobic composting, wherein we use air and oxygen to help with the composting process. So I wish you could peek into the composter. There's no smell, nothing. So this is my composter, and this is the waste from earlier days. I can easily touch it, and it's nothing bad. It's not even smelling right now. So what I'll do is I'll just take my waste. This one I've already chopped. This is something that I wanted to show you, and then put it. So I just put the waste in here. So it's got a lot of cold diamond inside. and then instead of putting it in just one place, मैंने उसको अच्छे से spread कर दिया. Spread करने के बाद मेरे पास चाय पत्ती भी है यहाँ पे. चाय पत्ती just make sure that it's not got too much. अच्छे से उसको धो लीजिए पहले डालने से पहले, because dairy वगैरह unnecessarily flies and attract करते हैं. So you just want to wash it nicely. Put it in the compost bin. Yes, sir. And then what can go into your composting bin? You can add. You can also, if you're a non-vegetarian, if there are bones in the house, you can also put your chicken, fish bones in the composting bin. Eggshells, yes, you can, but make sure that you've crunched them nicely. Don't just put them, because they take much longer than your fruit and vegetable waste, right? And then you can also add any fruit, vegetable waste, any peels. Paper can go into, but not your newspapers, because again they have ink and they're bleached, so you don't want anything which is bleached. Unbleached paper is absolutely fine. And yeah, so that's that. You can add that. Hair, you can also put hair, so it's a good brown actually for your composting, so you can put hair. Animal waste, no poop, no pee, you can't put that, but you can put jeevamrit. So jeevamrit is something which is made with cow dung and with cow urine. So it's a mix of all of that and a few other things. So you can add that as an accelerator instead of a bioenzyme. Yeah, so once you've added that, then you take your brown. Here I'm taking sawdust and nicely cover it up. So usually it's a 1:3 ratio if you want the calculation. It's usually 1:3 ratio. One is your waste and 3 parts is your browns. But then here what I do is I just make sure कि सब कुछ अच्छे से cover हो. Tends to make the whole pit a little dry. I want it to be nice and moist. And when I say moist, the good way of looking at it is कि भेलपुरी आपने भेलपुरी खाई है? भेलपुरी का consistency जैसा होना चाहिए. It's not too wet, not too dry, just right. So वैसा. And then once you've added the sawdust, you'll see the sawdust here. It's covered the whole thing. Then I've got a separate little stick. You can also have a rake, and you just mix it a little. Give a mix. अगर तो फिर से आपको दिखता है कि कुछ वेस्ट जो है अभी भी ऊपर है, you can add some more sawdust. Right? And यहाँ पे मुझे कुछ chunks दिखाई दे रहे हैं. I'll just cut that. A little more. एंड या अगर आपका बहुत ज़्यादा ड्राई हो रहा है तो ड्राई होने से आप थोड़ा सा पानी डाल सकते हैं ऊपर, या फिर बटर मिल्क थोड़ा सा डाल सकते हैं. If it's too wet, then add some more sawdust or your browns in the compost. And a good way of knowing whether it's too wet, ganda smell aane lag jata hai usme. It's a very pungenty smell, so you know that it's too much water in it. So you just balance it out, see whether it's too dry or too wet, and you do that. And then cover it up back. So this is how I do it. You can cover it up with just the lid, or else you can take a newspaper, flatten it out and push the compost down. इसके अंदर paper लगा के उसको थोड़ा नीचे push करके, and then you can put the lid back on. And then leave it. इसको बारिश is fine as long as it's not very harsh sunlight. It's okay. बारिश में बिल्कुल नहीं रखना है. और the other thing is, अगर आपको maggots या flies के, आपको कभी-कभी लगता होगा कि इसमें बदबू आएगी या flies आएंगे, बदबू नहीं. If your compost is going right, if the decomposition process is happening correctly, then there will be no smell from it. But in case it starts to smell, it could be because of your uh, too much water content in it. So a good way of managing that is to add more browns in it, right? अगर maggots का problem हो रहा है, maggots essentially are, they come from the soldier flies, the black soldier flies. They are good for the compost, you know. They are very good for the compost because, you know, they secrete certain proteins and oils which are good for the compost. They kind of hasten they expedite the whole process. But at the same time, अगर आप कंफर्टेबल नहीं है कि आपकी कंपोजिशन बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गई है, पहला है कि it's primarily because of excess moisture, and the second could be that and the second is that you want to manage it, right? So पहला brown add कीजिए ज़्यादा, या फिर आप नीम और turmeric का powder बना सकते हैं और उसको sprinkle कर दीजिए on your compost. The other way is borax powder. You can buy a little borax powder from the medical shops or from your kirana stores, and sprinkle only a little bit of borax powder on the top. That kind of controls the maggot population in it. And but they're good for the compost. If they're just too many, if it's exploding, the population is too much, just check your water content and moisture content. And if there are few of them, it's okay, they're good for it, so that's fine. Now, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We're also live on YouTube right now on the Swadharani's Sustainable Living Everyday channel. So that's where we keep uploading all of our videos as well. You'll find many other videos apart from what we're doing on live. And yeah, so now you may ask me, ye compost bin, is there a certain technicality to the compost bin before we make it, or can we just use a regular bucket and start with it? No. So here, you can't see it right now, but actually there's the lid, there's the bucket, and there is another lid right at the bottom. So when the composting process starts, there's a lot of water content is also released in the process. And what that does is it goes down at the bottom, and it's called leachate, right? And that's good leachate. So what you want is, instead of that leachate to go on the ground, you want to collect it somewhere, right? So you can actually add a small. Let me see if I can show it to you. See, there is a small I've put a small lid right here. जैसे आप pots में करते हैं ना, flowering pots में, flower pots में, बिल्कुल वैसे ही. You just need to put one. You can just put a small lid over here, and you're good to go, right? Another thing is that the bucket has holes in it. So we've drilled holes in the bucket. So on the sides there are holes. So there must be about 10 holes around the bucket. That's because we want the oxygen circulation and it to be aerated. And at the bottom also there are multiple holes. There are about 10 to 15 holes, about 10 holes at the of the uh, bottom of the bucket, so that जो भी पानी बनता है अंदर वो नीचे leach होके, and the leachate goes into the leachate can go into the lid at the bottom. What do you do with that leachate? You can use it for your plants as fertilizer. Dilute it with water. Just dilute it with water, and you're good to go. You can add it to your plants. And that's that. I think each composter takes about 3 to 6 months, depending on what you're doing. And please go ahead and just experiment. You know, it's a beautiful process. It also helps you understand, you know, what happens. You know, the whole decomposition process. It's not just the organic content, but there are so many things interacting with each other. There's so much life interacting with each other in the composting process. And I think each one of us just learns, you know, I share my own tips and tricks with you. Trust me, you know, wherever you are, depending on whatever kind of food habits you have, you know, your composter is going to look very different. Okay, and your experience is going to be very different. But the point is to experiment and find our own, you know, rhythm with composting. So this is a very simple one. You can also stack. You can also make a multi-level composter. इसमें एक bucket है, आप एक और bucket add कर सकते हैं. वो bucket जब full होती है, उसको नीचे ले आए और ये bucket को ऊपर ले जाइए. So one of the very beautiful places where you can actually, if you want to go like proper, you know, composting way, then daily dump is a very beautiful place. what they're doing. So you can go and check them out, and you can order your own. Somebody's trying to contact me at this time, but yeah, I can't take the call. So anyway, so Daily Dump is a beautiful organization. They're doing some fabulous work when it comes to managing waste from home. So you may want to check them out, and you can order your composter from them as well. And so just go and do that. Otherwise, just go DIY way. You know, it's you can manage with whatever you have at home, and you are good to go. All right, so that's that from me. I hope you have a fabulous time composting. If there are any questions, when can I start using it? Reva, you can start using you mean the compost? The end compost? In 3 to 6 months. So what happens is your compost, the smell, you can tell by the smell. When you pick up your waste, the compost, if it's ready, it'll start smelling like soil. It's a very good question. Thanks for the question. It'll start smelling like soil, and it's just so nice and delicious. I mean, it's just delicious, the fragrance of soil. So the moment that happens, when you smell that, you know that it's ready. Once it's ready, you have to sieve it. Usko छानना पड़ता है, because there would still be some content which may not have decomposed completely. So usko छान के जो you will get something like this, like a tea. It will be like a tea powder, right? So you can start using the tea powder, and the rest you can put back in the composting bin for further composting, or else you can leave it in the leaven or the extra pot that you have with some accelerator, right? So you can add some buttermilk or some curd or some bioenzymes to that, so that it accelerates the process and it continues the composting process for that. So in typically in 3 to 6 months, depending on how much waste you have, your compost should be ready for the sieving, for the maturing. So it's called maturing. And then once your compost is ready, the tea is ready, you leave it in the sun for some time, for about 24 to 48 hours. And that's when you start using it after. Okay, any other questions? I'll just quickly scroll through if there are any other questions. I like the handi wala idea. Thank you, Santosh. I love it too. I just chanced upon it and I took it. Um, anybody else? Okay, so the video will be available, I think, on the story. I'm new to, I mean, I'm not that new to Instagram, but yeah, still figuring out stuff. But the will be available on IGTV as well, so you can refer back to it whenever. And please do leave your comments, leave your questions, and if any of you have already composted before, please do share your experience as well. And it'll be beautiful if we can build this community. Thanks, Monish. Yeah. Start soon. I want to see more and more pictures. Tag us if you're starting your own composting after this. Just take a picture. I think more and more of us should be able to do this. We need to do this. Yeah. It's needed now. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a good weekend. Have a good Sunday tomorrow and the Saturday. Bye. Absolutely, Monish. I'll wait for it, for the results.